So if you are looking for a job, especially now in COVID, even though things have gotten better, like I don't know what state you're in, I don't know what your experience currently is when it comes to job opportunities in your area, but if you are looking for a job, this is for you. Okay, this is for you. Today we're talking about tips on how to have a successful interview, and particularly how to prepare for an interview. So stay tuned. All right, so you can only have a successful interview if you prepared for it. That's how it starts. You will have a great job interview if you prepare for it. And I have for you 6 things that you need to do to increase your chances of landing that job. It's time to level up, people. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started with you on this very simple and seemingly obvious tips, but in reality, a lot of people may not have ever done this. Think about it. Have you done any of the things that I've told you? And if you have, has it worked? If not, you may want to consider it. All right, so the first is, before you walk into an interview, make sure you did your research on the employer that you're applying to work for. You don't want to go into something blind. You want to make sure that you know who it is that you're trying to work for. No one buys a house willingly without doing their homework. No one just buys a car without searching, the car history, its maintenance history, if it's a used car, even if it's a new car, what its capabilities are, why it's a vehicle of choice. You do your homework on some of these other very important decisions in life. Do that with your job. How impressive is it as an employer, right, or as a former recruiter like myself, to come across someone who knows a lot about me and the organization that I represent? That means, hey, okay, you were kind of ahead of the game, so do your research. Go on a website for that organization. Figure out what it is that they believe, their core values. Research what they've been able to accomplish. What are some of their issues or struggles? Like, you want to know the deal that you're buying, and at the same time you also want to impress your employer at the interview when you have a chance to talk about why it is you've applied for that job. You can hit on the things you researched. You can say, well, I'm interested in working here not only for my skill set history and my ability to perform in this position, but I believe I'm lining up with the organization's goal to do X, Y, and Z. See, last year you all were able to do blank, 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 and I believe I can add value in that area and allow in helping you reach that goal this year again, because that I know is still on your plan of attack. See how impressive that sounds? Right? And that was just off the noggin. I'm just giving you an idea so you can see why this is important. Okay, tip number 2. Prepare and organize a folder or folders with your resume and work samples. Now, I think it's important to note this because oftentimes people don't do this, right? You may submit your resume through the application, which is great. They'd already have it. Let's just say that whatever you submitted in the online application, if it asks for your resume, they have your resume, right? Hopefully they're reading it now, but they have your resume. And so, but even though you've submitted it, you want to make sure that before your interview, you bring extra copies of your resume, because you don't know. Being on the other end, being an interviewer, I don't know how, there's been a few times now where I've had to search last minute for a resume just before the interview because I've been so busy I didn't have a chance to do my homework on the individual. So when I walk into an interview and someone has a resume, I'm like, well, go ahead and give it to me, and I'll look it over, and even after the interview I'll probably go over it again and do my research. So it's just nice to have someone who is ready for you. And so have your resume, and also have work samples if it's appropriate. If it's a job where you're required to have a particular skill set type, writing, if it's producing anything in particular, like if you are a graphic designer, if you are a speaker and you have videos or anything to show what you're capable of doing, presentation skills, whatever, bring that with you. Bring sheets, right? Put them in a little folder, put them in a nice, neatly organized folder with maybe a tab or two, and make sure you have extras for your interviewers, right? Make sure that you may not know how many are at the panel. You may be able to ask that question prior to just calling the organization and saying, hey, I'm preparing for my interview. I'd like to bring some work samples. How many individuals are part of the panel so I can prepare to provide the samples that I'm going to have in my interview. Or you can just make sure to have at least 3. Nowadays, panels are getting pretty large, or they're fairly large in that they have at least 3 people. And the reason why there's 3 people oftentimes or more in an interview process is because anyone who has a role to play, who's associated, who's going to interface with this individual, may be at the interview to add additional perspective on the candidate, so that whoever makes the final decision is doing so through a holistic perspective. So don't be intimidated if you see 4, 5, sometimes 6 people in your interview. It's because the person who's making the decision values every person's opinion about you, because in some way, shape, or form, what you do is going to either impact them or the organization from a particular perspective. And so having those extra eyes and reviews, it's going to be helpful. It's similar to when you go out and you're looking for the best restaurant in town. You go to the one that has the most reviews, right? Because the one with the most reviews, and if most of the reviews are positive, then I'm confident that even with a few negative reviews, this is probably going to be a really great restaurant, right? So it's kind of that same concept sometimes with when it comes to searching for a job. So yeah, so prepare a folder or folders with the work samples, that you would like to share, so that they can see what you're capable of. Because the step up that you're going to have that no one else has is that you have evidence, especially if they don't know who you are. If you did not network with these individuals, if you didn't make your phone calls prior to and what have you, you can have a great interview and answer the questions well. But if you have evidence to back that up, back it up. Give them a link somewhere, maybe on the reference sheet or what have you, in your folder, where maybe you have a list of all your references, and then at the bottom you have you can look up my work at LinkedIn, at my LinkedIn account, put your URL there, and then maybe the other pages can be copies of the work you've done. So if it's photos, if it's written work, if it's presentation slides, if it's what have you, this is what I've been able to accomplish. So they can see it for themselves. Written, any policies you've developed, what have you, put it in there. Put it in there. If it is, if it relevant, there it is. If it's relevant. I'm like tongue twisting. Come on. All right. So number 3, call your employer or your hiring manager to express interest prior to the interview. Okay, if you were called for the interview, just call and say, thank you for the wonderful opportunity to interview next week. I'm looking forward to it. I did get a call from HR to schedule it, so I am ready to go, but I thought to call you and just tell you directly, thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to meeting you. That's it. That's all it takes. One little phone call, and you'd be so surprised. You are probably the only one that called. All right, you're probably the only one that called, because people aren't doing it. You'd be so surprised. As long as I've been recruiting and helping and hiring folks, no one's really doing that, And so you'll stand out immediately if you do something like that. And then, before you get the interview, when you apply for the job, it's even better to do so as early as possible. The moment I submit that application or my resume, I'm giving that person a phone call. Who is the individual that will be making the decision on the candidates for this for this position? go ahead, get that information, call that individual and let them know that you applied, you are interested, you researched and saw what this organization is doing, and you believe that you're going to be a good fit for this organization, and you're looking forward to the opportunity, if provided to you, to do an interview. All right, we're already halfway there, folks. Okay, this is probably gonna be one of the shorter videos I've done, and I always want to tout myself on how quickly I can get through this, because if anybody knows me, I am quite talkative, but I don't want to be too talkative because I don't want to talk your head off, and I know there's other stuff you want to do, like go on Netflix and all right, so number 4, bring a notepad and pen to take notes during your interview. Yes, I said that. You see, one interesting thing is that when I go to when I'm the interviewee in an interview, or interviewer, long day, y'all, don't even ask. But when I'm the interviewer and someone walks in barehanded and they're just going there and sitting down and they're gonna answer all the questions, that's great. I know that's how it's been done for a long time. But you know what impresses me is someone who comes in with, let's say, a leather, full binder or leather binder holder thing, and and they look really nice too, very professional. You can probably find it on like Walmart or something, but they have zippers around them and you can unzip it, open it, whatever. If you have one of those in your hand and you immediately after, when you enter a room and you acknowledge, shake hands, whatever. You may not be able to shake hands now because of COVID, but when you're ready to get into that interview after greeting everybody and what have you, and the first thing you do is you pull out your little leather binder thing and you unzip that thing, you open that thing up, what? Let me tell you, you are impressive already. Like, you look like you're ready to get work done already, and we didn't even hire you. Like, there are not a lot of people doing this. The little things make such a difference, because what? They're already seeing attributes, right? That you're showing through these actions. Okay, wow, this person must be studious, must be hardworking, must be attentive, must be organized. She's here with her little thing, opening it up, ready to go, pulling out her resume and her little folders to hand us some work samples and references, and is pulling out her little notepad to take notes. Like, whoa, that can come across really, really well to an employer. Like, you are ready to go, yo. Ready to go, yo. That should be a t-shirt, okay? So yeah, bring a notepad and pen, because what's gonna happen during your interview is that, there's gonna be parts where they're probably giving information about the organization. Oftentimes the interviews start off with, tell us a bit about yourself, and just FYI, I'm going to do a separate video to cover some of the main questions that are often asked in interviews and demonstrate how to answer them well, tips on how to answer the most common interview questions, whether it's from entry level all the way through some skilled executive, whatever position. There's just a basic rule of thumb for answering interview questions that can be quite effective. So stay tuned for that video when it comes out. So go ahead and click that bell so you get notified when I drop a video and blah, blah, blah. You know the whole spiel because you've been on YouTube long enough. But yeah, there's going to be times where during the introduction, when you talk about yourself, they're probably going to talk about the organization, and you just want to seem like, you're being attentive. So, taking a few notes here and there, still keeping eye contact. That's always important. Keep eye contact, but just, every moment or so, just, look down and take your notes, right, while you're still engaged. All right, next we're going to go to number 5. We are almost out of here. So obvious. I don't know why it's on here, but you know what? I have had interviewees who have failed at this, especially when it comes to those more lower skilled jobs. Sometimes, like, people don't take this seriously as they should. No, but then also I had this issue with an executive position. But be on time. You prepare for your interview by making sure you will wake up on time and get there on time. Always get to your interview 15 minutes before it starts. All right? I am completely unimpressed, and I will look the other way if a candidate shows up late to their interview. Sorry, if you're late, you already ruined it. Like, that's a sign. Now, granted, yes, there are circumstances, unforeseen circumstances that happen where, hey, you know, something could have happened to you. An accident, you know, someone got ill, your spouse got ill, you know, so you had to maybe do some extra things that morning to care for the kids that you were not anticipating. You got in an accident, whatever. But those instances they're rare, right? Especially for like planned interviews to get a job. Like, people do their very best to avoid situations, certain situations. If it is unforeseen and it happens to take place, have evidence with you, because employers do feel like people will lie just so that they don't ruin their chances of getting a job. We know people lie. Oh, I got in an accident this morning. Okay, well, you may not necessarily have to legally show them anything, right? But if you want to create an impression, especially if you genuinely went through an unforeseen circumstance, have evidence with you. If you have photos of the accident, you know, location, or the accident that was on the highway on your way there, and you had drove, you know, you made sure to get on the road 30 extra minutes in advance just to avoid the traffic, but there happens to be a major collision and you're backed up on the road a lot longer than you anticipated. Take pictures, make sure you call them, and let them know, hey, I'm late, I'll be late to this interview. Can we please reschedule for some time later today or at your convenience? But you want to make sure you can reschedule as soon as possible, because they would already have gone through other candidates and they may just want to just end it right there. So do your best to try to make up for it. If you're able to make it and you're there late, have evidence, show pictures, a video, the doctor's note, hey, I'm not lying, this is what happened, I apologize, this is not something that I had anticipated. Very rare that this takes place, but it seemed to happen to me this morning. I hope you can understand. I am really interested in doing this interview and having an opportunity to engage with you on this opportunity. So be like that, give evidence, because if you don't, we're gonna think you're lying. Just saying. Like, and no one wants to, you know, hire a potentially dishonest person. And then last but not least, and this is critical, this is how you're going to kill every single interview. You're going to do so well on every single interview if you do number 6. All the others are important now, but if you do number 6, my friend, you're going to change your life. You are going to be a pro at doing interviews, and that is practice. Yes, I said practice. Okay, I know that term, we get used to saying that with sports. For all my athletes out there, we're used to saying practice for, I don't know, everything else but an interview. But listen here, as unbelievable as it may sound, doing an interview is kind of like doing a performance. Okay, just like dancers have to practice, actors have to practice, you know, to get good at their craft. You gotta practice doing interviews. You got to research top 5 questions, for instance, asked at an interview. And through these videos, if you're watching these videos, you're gonna learn the tips, the tricks, the advice, and start implementing them. Just practice before you even apply for work. Like, or the moment you start submitting your applications, start practicing. When I say practice, not only get those questions, learn the tips as to how to respond to these questions. Again, I'm gonna put a plug in for this video that I'm gonna push out soon about how to answer most common job interview questions. But you have to do these mock interviews. Find somebody, a friend, a cousin, auntie, Uncle JJ, I don't know, like get somebody to sit down and ask you questions like an employer, okay? Take it seriously. It's practice. It's meant to be a mock. It's supposed to imitate what a real experience would be like. And so do your mock interviews, practice, make sure the people who are asking the questions, to you, that they're taking notes and they give you their honest opinion about how they think you did. And there is a set criteria for how you judge how questions are answered. And there are other not so necessarily standard criteria out there. And I can go into that in a different video because it would make this a lot longer. But what I'm trying to say is that you have to practice, do your research, repeat how to answer questions as much as you can so that it's ingrained in you and it becomes natural. Because the moment you understand how to answer a question, doesn't matter what kind of question it is. I mean, it'll just fly off the top of your head. You're going to speak with confidence. You're going to speak like you know your stuff. I mean, you're going to blow it out the water. And if you are here during this time of COVID and you've been applying all over the place and you have not yet gotten a job, I know, sis. I know, bro. It's challenging, but I'm encouraging you to hold in there, okay? Hold in there. Now that I'm giving these tips, if this is your first time coming across this kind of information, I'm glad you stumbled here. I do not believe it was a coincidence. I do believe God purposely had you come by this video so that you can make whatever changes you need to improve your chances of landing that job. It's time to level up, people. So with that, that's it. I got 6 tips for you. Run this thing back if you have to. Remember it if you need to. Take notes if you need to. As a matter of fact, go ahead and share it. Just do everybody you know a favor and just share it, because a lot of people, 9 out of 10, I would guess, don't know a lot of this stuff. So help somebody out, pass it forward, and I'll see you later. Have a good night.